Hey, everybody. I wanted to have a frank discussion with you. If you're heading off into retirement or you are in retirement, you do need to think through what your plans are as you age. Okay. This is not an easy topic. We never want to be unhealthy. We never want to rely on others to help care for us. So I've got some questions I want to start with because I want you to contemplate these things. There should be a good plan. Sometimes it's in writing, sometimes we just know what it is, but putting it in writing is important at some point. Okay. So let's start with the first question. What is the most important to you as you age? Things like independence or not being a burden on others or cost or whatever it is for you. Start thinking about what's most important for you as you age. Some people like to say, "Oh, I'm going to move to Oregon and take care of it." Yeah, no, it doesn't work out that way. Okay, I have a mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know when your mind starts failing you in a lot of cases. I had a great aunt. I went and visited her and she said, "Oh, thank you for coming over and visiting the Queen," because she thought she lived with the Queen in England. She was having the greatest time of her life. So everybody has different versions of aging, and we do have to be careful about this. We can't control it as much as we would like to think we can. What are you afraid of as you age? Losing your dependence, deteriorating health, loneliness, etc. What is your fear? So we want to make sure that we're opening these discussions. These are things for you to contemplate. This is the goal of this is to be able to put a plan together that's going to be right for you. And a plan doesn't just mean how am I going to pay for it or things like that. It's got to be a lot more holistic than that. Next two questions. Tour, well, this isn't much of a question, but this is more of a request of mine for you. Tour different options in your area to get a feel for what's available. Okay, so look at the independent living, look at the assisted living, look at the full care. People have very strange ideas of what it costs out there, and you'll find that there is usually a wide variety of choices out there, especially here in Arizona. We've got an abundance of options out there. Some of those options have wait lists. Okay. So then we want to start asking questions. We want to find out what the cost is in our area because not all areas are the same. The South has the best in terms of lowest cost, whereas the North and the coasts are much more expensive. There aren't too many facilities in Alaska, so we see crazy numbers in Alaska. Weirdly, Minnesota area has very high expenses, and then the obvious ones, the coastlines, can be very expensive. So go look at all these different types of facilities in an area that you're comfortable with and get to know your choices. You're not putting yourself into a long-term care facility today, but I want you at least to be familiar with what's in your area. Again, I have a mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. It was very difficult transitioning her into a long-term care facility. Our only idea was to try to figure out where she would be comfortable. And at that point, her ability to make decisions was very erratic. I hate this place. I like this place. I don't like this place. I like this place. And that was all in one place. So we got to make sure that maybe we could put some wishes down and tell our heirs where we would prefer to go if needed. So then the next two questions are, where would you want to age? Okay. So again, this is more of an ideal situation because there's a lot of what ifs in life, right? What if we got Alzheimer's versus what if we had a stroke versus what if we just got to 100 years old and need a little help here and there? Everybody's going to be in a different situation. We have no idea how to predict that. Would you prefer to stay home as long as possible? Do you want to go stay with family? I looked at I had somebody in my office not too long ago, and I always try to, in coming up with a good full financial plan, we always want to talk about long-term care and what your views are. And I said, well, do you have any long-term care products? Do you, how do you see long-term care going for you? And she looked at me square in the face and said, I raised two doctors. They're going to take care of me, period. They have no choice. And I loved it. So every day I changed my daughter's diapers. I said, you're going to change mine someday. So we all have our way of taking care of our long-term care. So then there's assisted living, et cetera. So there's lots of different ways to receive care for most of our needs. And then what are your resources? Do a good review of the resources you have. How much equity do you have in real estate? How much in savings do you have? Long-term care products. On top of that, add your income. I don't know what the mental block is, but your income does not stop just because you're in long-term care. If you have Social Security checks of $3,000 a month coming in, they're still going to be coming in. We don't have to foot the bill for all of it. We can use that income to pay that bill, because I tell you, if you've got Alzheimer's, you're not doing anything else but staying in that long-term care facility. So the expenses above that are limited. All right, next two. Who is available to provide support? Now, I'm not necessarily talking about actually giving you the care. I'm more talking about, we had a client that came in and she was very confused, and she kind of didn't know where she was, and she was starting to struggle a little bit. And we started reaching out to family and couldn't find anybody. Everybody in her trust had actually passed away, and the only relative we could find was a stepson from a previous marriage. There were two marriages. This was the first marriage. And that was the only family member we could find at all. And they lived across the country from her. So there really wasn't any support around her to help her and guide her into a long-term care facility. So we do have to think about this, okay? Who is there that can keep an eye on you? Because you're not going to know something's wrong. She didn't know anything was wrong. My mother-in-law in the early years, oh, I just bumped my head, I'm fine. That's her excuse. That's what she would tell us. So who lives locally? How close is your family? How much family do you have left? Or do you have friends that are close and around you? Who's the power of attorney? We got to think through this. Who is available to provide support? Again, not necessarily care. And then who can we talk to about these plans? So if we do put together a plan, our wishes, if this happens, then do this, then who are we going to rely on to execute these plans? Obviously, you have, hopefully, power of attorneys. Your medical and financial power of attorneys should know your plans. You shouldn't keep this to yourself. Say, if anything starts failing, if I start getting sundowners, if I start whatever it may be, I want you to know I have written plans and they are here. Okay, they're with my will, they're with my trust, they're with, give it to the power of attorneys, discuss it, especially if your power of attorneys are your kids. They should understand what you prefer to happen. Trust me, that would have helped tenfold in my mother-in-law's case. If there was some form of proactive plan, it would have taken a huge burden off my wife. And that's so important to understand, that this helps your heirs. That's who this helps. Okay. The next one, good plan. What does it include? Okay, so we start with this idea, we start thinking through all these little pieces of things that we need to think about. Then I want you to think about proactive versus reactive. So I want to paint this picture. Okay, if you're married, okay, and one of the spouses passes away, usually the surviving spouse wants to be more proactive. Okay, maybe the kids are all everywhere else. There's no local support. So you end up in this situation where there's nobody to know that something's going wrong. And so we want to be proactive when we want to go into independent living, and then assisted living, and then graduated care type plans that are out there. So some people want to be proactive. And this is why statistically, You look at the generation that's in long-term care right now, and the vast majority are women in there because the men didn't live as long as the women. So the men passed away, and the surviving spouses were being proactive, going into these graduated care facilities. You end up with the independent type situation, not admitting I'm not going to long-term care, I'm going to independent living. It's a much better situation, much more controlled, less fraud going on. There's a lot better situation there. Whereas reactive, look, we can't predict that we're going to get Alzheimer's. We can't predict certainly a stroke or a heart attack that doesn't kill us, right? So reactive would be situations like that when we can't predict when stuff like that's going to happen. So understand that there's proactive and reactive situations. And I applaud people that are proactive, especially when they don't have someone local helping. Okay, when you're married, you help take care of each other. If you have family that's local, that is interactive with you and stays around, then you can be reactive in that case. But when you're on your own across the country from support, then sometimes you're going to have to be proactive. Then there's the where would you like to go? I want you to be proactive about this planning. I want you to go out there and look at what's available, not because you plan on going in soon, but because you need to be aware of your surroundings and you need to kind of write down what you liked that you saw out there. Then think about this. If this, then that. Well, if my spouse passes away, then I would like to find a community that has more support. Let's call it that, right? We want to be more proactive. Well, if I get Alzheimer's, then I like that place. If this happens, then that. If this happens, then that. Start coming up with those scenarios and just kind of write them out, and brainstorm this. That is part of this plan because then your heirs will have guidance. Then whoever your power of attorney is will have guidance on what your wishes were when you were of sound mind. And then how are you going to pay for it? And those power of attorneys, if you have a long-term care insurance product out there, those power of attorneys need to know about that because the first things first, they got to start trying to get money out of those products. Let's use somebody else's money first to make sure we use their money first instead of your own. The big problem I see out there is it's so hard to get money out of those products that they give up and they just spend all your money. Well, that's not very efficient. I would rather use somebody else's money first, obviously. So let's do that. Let's make sure that we do understand our resources. Don't forget the equity in your house. For a lot of people, that is your long-term care insurance plan right there. You go into a long-term care facility, you sell that house, you take that money, you supplement your income to pay that bill, and that typically for most people will last long enough for you to enjoy the last few years of life. Okay? All right. I hope that this brainstorming activity helps. Everybody should think through this and come up and pencil this in and come up with some form of a written plan. Any good financial advisor is going to talk through this and have a plan, at least from the financial side. It's still got to be up to you from the side of looking at the facilities in your area and making decisions whether you want to be proactive or not. Okay? So I hope that helps. I'm always happy to talk through this stuff with people. Yourinvestmentcounselor.com. You can schedule a 30-minute meet and greet with me. FPFEAZ.org is where you find our full form classes. We do a different topic every month. You got 3 or 4 different days that you can watch it live on Zoom with me. I teach the classes that are anywhere from hour and a half long. On different topics every month. So jump on FPFEAZ.org and certainly give us a call if we can help out in any way. If you haven't visited the full channel, subscribe. There's new videos every single week. I keep coming up with new stuff. I don't know how I do it, but I've got an endless line of topics to create videos on. Like, subscribe, all those wonderful things, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again.